I was asked by Doug Souls of ISPA to come up with a new kind of lobby experience. So instead of it being like a waiting room, it could incorporate sound and visual elements to create an immersive experience. He had this great little mini grand piano that he wanted to have it as part of the installation as well. I came up with an industry wall and a music wall. So I came up with two ideas, but we ended up incorporating both of them. And they would call for assemblage and monitors of content, really multimedia. The first installation box I made was a music box. We wanted to focus on fine stringed instruments. For the industry wall, I first built this assemblage box using clock elements and various circular things. The idea was to create these wall wrap paintings. This first series was for the music section, and I incorporated poetry from a friend, Rosemary Watola Tromer, a US poet whose work she's performed in the gallery and whose work I really admire. She was totally cool with being part of it. So working on the floor of the studio, I spent a couple of months developing these large canvases. I calculated within it the framework of these. The full painting was 18 feet wide by 12 feet tall, and the idea was to cut out areas for monitors and for the music assemblage box and frame the baby grand piano within this little L-shaped wall. I had never done a single canvas, although I did it in pieces. I did it in 3 pieces. I had never done a single canvas quite this large, but you can see I laid it out in the studio and was able to figure out the placement of everything. Using real instruments and 55-inch monitors for the music section, I began to experiment with Brian Eno's 77 million paintings program, which is a video and regenerative music software thing he developed in the early 2000s, which would continually add color and paint in a regenerative fashion to the wall itself. Here's the layout of all 3 panels as they would appear. The whole gallery was taken over by the various video components I was incorporating into it. So I had 2 monitors, one of time-lapse clouds, one of slow motion reflections on water, and the 2 Brian Eno ones. And then I worked with, well, you'll see it in a moment or 2. So I had to build these walls before I could wrap them, and I allowed a 12-inch gap in them for air circulation for all this electronic. And here you can see that I'm working out the sequence. So I'm working out time loops so that not only do the monitors continuously play, but they never play in sync, so that the phase lock is out of it, and thereby no 2 events will ever happen at the same time. So you can watch these monitors for weeks on end and everything will never line up. They're all of different length. I also, using an iPad, brought in a couple Brian Eno programs where you can draw on the screen, creating music, so that if you're sitting in the lobby, you can actually interact with the lobby itself by playing with it undocks, and you can bring it to where you're sitting, and you can play with this color creating, sound generating device. The sound loops that you make while you're doing this will echo and be referenced back through the system over the next weeks, so that the music that you interact with while you're doing it is fed into a larger feedback loop that continues the ambient sound throughout the space. Now, they normally have it turned down quite low because of, I guess, the distraction. Personally, if the threshold is up louder, what you end up is it drowns out some of the white noise of all the computers and the whirring of the plant wall, etc., and it instead creates this space. I can understand why the receptionist might get sort of over bombarded with it. You're hearing the soundtrack now, so what you're hearing in the background is various recordings I made of the generative music software that's built into the installation. Now, for the time-lapse clouds, I'm speeding up sometimes as many as 2,000 times to really get the fluid nature of this. So I'm working with water and the fact that water has driven mills, the Industrial Revolution, since way back when, through steam, etc. So I'm here looking at the fluid motion of water and the air currents, the clouds, and I spent a few months. We had a great summer of lots of cloud growth and development. I spent a few months that summer either aiming into the water or aiming into the sky to capture these recordings. So in the end, I think it's an hour and 15-minute loop of these time-lapse clouds. I probably shot about 40 hours to draw from for that hour and 15 minutes. And then the water loop below it is again a different length so that they wouldn't run in sync. Now, as I say, the clouds have been sped up to 2,000 times. For the water, I slow it down. I slow it down to perhaps 10% of its original speed. I find that it allows almost a suspension of disbelief that you're looking at a reflection, and you begin to see form and shape within the abstractions. I have spent a lot of time looking at reflections, and almost immediately one is shifted into an alpha state where you're really, really relaxed. It's my belief that poets and philosophers and writers since the beginning of time, in fact, have used those kind of stimulus to conceive of new ideas, new thoughts, new ways of looking at things. And that is really what I wanted to accomplish in this installation. So here I am wrapping the music wall and then cutting out the individual areas where I'll be inserting either musical instruments or assemblage boxes or the monitors. Once I had them seamed, I had to sort of spend a little bit of time just making sure, because the lighting was different in my gallery, I would make sure the painting worked in the space that it was in. So I spent a few days touch up and integrating the 3 canvases that I had joined together for this corner. So if you take a look at that music wall at any given time, although you might see that spiral, it'll be with different elements behind. There's always about 12 layers of imagery happening on those. In the corner, I placed this muse box. When artists or writers or idea thinkers get into a place, they seek muse. And in this box, I have this painting that again is more addressing the abstract idea of ideas, or of finding ideas, or finding thought and developing ideas. Here again, the music wall with a totally different series of images in it. Now that center box also has a lighting system within it that goes through a spectrum of colors, so that it's always undulating on its own as well. Here's the original drawing for the 8-foot canvas I did for the industry wall. So we decided to do it as a large canvas, but then we would mechanically enlarge it for the mural wrap on the industry wall. Now the ideas and the inspiration for these circles came from a friend of mine had shot historic photographs of the Aaron wood mill before it burnt down, and those were all shapes I saw in his photographs, and again worked up a big 8-foot painting, and here working with a friend printed out in the end it's 22 feet by 11 feet mural, and here we are installing that. Again, once the wall was built and the drywall was done, but before the elements are all integrated, I did have to have the inside wall monitors already placed, because they're done with a blind window so that they can be removed if need be, but they're sort of built in. That was the idea and the look we're looking for. I spent a great deal of time at flea markets and antique stores assembling various steampunk elements that would be built into the system. We pressed out steel for both the baseboards, corners, and the in front of the monitors, the industry monitors, and I used speed corrosives with rust and water to get them distressed. I wanted the experience as one enters to be entering a sanctuary, not a temple, but instead almost a museum of thought, a museum of ideas, so that you were guided by your own intuitive sense which area of the installation you would go to. I wanted there to be enough interest and focus areas that you could wander and linger, spending time. And then before you know it, the monitors have all shifted their content in some way. I also wanted it to work from all the different entrance points into the room, so that whether you're coming from the kitchen, the offices, or the front entrance, it's met with an interesting visual unfolding as you enter the room. There is a sense of warmth by the color choice, obviously, but also like a foundation just in the all the technologies that have been used to create industry and to facilitate industry. For the main industry monitor, I knew I wanted a circular porthole, and I had this old fan housing that I had got from a dump behind my property. And I found this old footage, late 1800s footage of the Westinghouse millwrights factories. And using various clips, I found a cadence, a rhythm pace, very slowed down, which would help one to, again, be absorbed into it and perhaps suspended into a different time. A different, like where seconds are perhaps slightly slower than normal. Here's the above monitor, and here's the below monitor. They function, again, just as moving paintings, but they also tell a story. For it's the information gleaned from the imagination by watching these that the mind processes. It brings in this abstraction and this fluidity, and ideas are born. That's the concept I'm trying to portray here. So the nature, the inspiration through nature is gathered, is processed by the mind, is triggering ideas and thoughts of how nature perhaps can facilitate manpower. And these early water mills certainly developed all of North America, and particularly in the region of Georgetown, Erin, like all of the area around here where rivers really were the first power source.
Yeah, especially in the thick areas, eh?
You can't even see it.